Hey guys, how you going? My name is Dom and today I want to demonstrate the adjacent sibling combinator within CSS, otherwise known as the plus symbol. So I think this is one of the lesser known features of CSS, but it's really powerful. So I'm going to show you a simple example of how it's actually used and how it works, followed by an actual demonstration of it being used for a real purpose. Okay, so first let's begin with the basics, right? So basically, this one is going to allow you to select an adjacent sibling of an existing HTML element. So, if I was to go inside the HTML for this document, we can make a div with a class of box. We can put an adjacent div next to this one, so it's an adjacent sibling of this div. Okay, so it's got the same parent and it's next to it. Okay. We can say box number 2. So now inside the CSS, we can target the box class, give it a width of 100px and a height of the same thing, and a background of red and a margin of something like 20px. So I can save this and refresh the browser and we get this right here. Perfect. So now let's target the adjacent sibling, otherwise known as box number 2, using the adjacent sibling combinator. Alright, so down here we're going to say a class of box plus a class of box number 2. So now this CSS rule set is going to apply to any class of box 2 which immediately follows and is a sibling of a class of box. In this case it's going to be this one right here. We're going to say width of 50px, height of the same thing, and a background of blue. Okay, I can save this and refresh, and now we get the result right there. That is the adjacent sibling combinator. Quite straightforward and very powerful. So if I was to just duplicate box number 2, we won't see a second box or blue box. Refresh, and we don't get one. If I was just to replace this with box below or before box number 2, so the same thing is up here, we'll now get the second blue box and of course the red box. Okay, so I can save this and refresh, and now we get those two right there. Alright, so now let's move on to the more real life use case of the adjacent sibling combinator. So we're going to make a modal window or modal box using this feature. So we're going to have the actual modal itself, and in the background, one of those opaque, transparent black overlays that goes across the entire web page. All right, so let's go back inside here and just get rid of all this stuff. And we're going to first make a button which will display the modal window. So button with an ID of btn open. Okay, we're going to say open modal. All right. We can now create the actual modal box itself. So we can make a new div with a class of modal. Okay, quite straightforward there. And a second div, this will be the actual modal overlay. So the dark black, opaque, transparent background. I'm going to say class of modal __ overlay. Okay, so yeah, that's it for now. So inside the CSS, we can target the modal itself. And we can say width of 200px, a height of 100px, a background of a light grey. Alright, I might just increase those sizes, so 300 and 200. Okay, a position of fixed. Alright, a z index of 10, a top of calc 50 vertical height, minus 100px, or I think it's viewport height, left of calc 50 viewport width subtracted by half of the width to actually center it in the middle, and a border of 2px solid and black. Alright, so I can save this and refresh, and we get this right here. Okay, so for the overlay, we can add some styles, so modal overlay. We can just say position once again of fixed, a left of 0, a top of 0, width of 100%, followed by the height of also 100%, a background of RGBA 0.5, and a z-index of 9. And I've just realized that you can probably replace this with the same as up here, so 100 viewport width instead, and 100 viewport height. So I think it's the same thing, but just obviously just trying to be consistent with the previous one. So I can save this and refresh, and now we get this right here. So we have the actual modal and the background as expected, right? So let's add some JavaScript to only show the overlay and the actual modal when this button is pressed, okay? But first, let's give these both a display of none, so they're hidden by default. Okay, perfect. Inside the JavaScript, let's get a reference to the btn open. We can say query selector and pass in here the ID of btn open. Do the same thing for the modal itself. So we're going to say const modal equals query selector, pass in here the first instance of a class of modal. So we can see here I'm only selecting the modal and not the modal overlay. So we're going to use the adjacent sibling combinator to target the overlay when this is being shown. Okay. Down here we're going to say btn open add event listener. When it gets clicked, we're going to say modal dot class list dot add. We're going to add a class to the modal that's going to be modal dash dash open. So this is a modifier class to the modal, which will look like this when it's done. So modal open, okay, which will simply display the modal as being block instead of none, which it is right now. Okay, so down here I'm going to say modal dash dash open. When it's open, we're going to say display as block. I can save this and refresh, click on the button, and it gets displayed. So now let's use the powerful adjacent sibling combinator to display also the overlay. Dot modal dash dash open, okay, plus modal overlay. Okay, we're going to apply the same CSS rule. I can save this and refresh, and we get the final result. Click on the button and the overlay and the modal itself gets displayed. Alright, and that is the adjacent sibling combinator in CSS. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you later.